Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We know we have many men that are listening to our show. My name again is Shug Bury, and this is Him for Her Ministries, Women's Hot Topics. And on this radio show is one of 5 initiatives that we have in our ministry. The first one is radio, bringing the gospel to the darkest corners of the world. And we're freeing women inside and out of prison. The second is speaking, where we go around and we share all the wonderful things that God has done in churches, communities, and events. The third is prison mentoring. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, as well as prison ministries that we do inside of prison as we go in and out, pre-COVID. And we start to share the gospel with them as well in church services. And the last initiative is a Revive Home that we have where we help women leaving prison. So as you've kind of picked up, first of all, I love women. And my heart just beats for people that are incarcerated. You know, friends, I'm all about, you do the crime, you do the time. But then also we need to be there to get the love thing right. And that brings my guest that I have here today. Her name is Erica Gerrity. And thank you, Erica, for coming on. I'm so thankful that you're our guest today.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, and she is with Ostara. And with the Ostara initiative, they have the Minnesota Prison Doula Project. And I'm going to just pick her brain on some of these things. What I'm going to start out with, though, is that I remember when I was delivering my child. Now, she's 36 years old now. But 36 years ago, I remember seeing officers outside of one of the units where a woman was delivering, and she was handcuffed to the bed delivering her child. A lot has changed since then. So, Erica, would you tell us what is the Doula Project?
Yeah, I think even what you just said is shocking to folks. I think a lot of people, the reaction is when I begin to talk about the work, they say, like, wow, I've just never thought about that before. And when they immediately confront them, it makes us all feel a lot of complicated, heavy things. And essentially, that was my experience when I was in graduate school. I was working at Shakopee Women's Prison, and this was in 2002. And I was in the interning with the parenting program, and one of the other incarcerated women came to me and said, we have got to do something for the pregnant women here. Like, it's just so heavy on my heart. And like, how they're being treated is not okay. And then a couple days later, I was in a room, you know how prison is, where there's like a clear piece of glass. And I could see there was a group there for postpartum women who had delivered. And there was a very young student who wasn't a mother herself, who knew nothing about the topic, teaching that. And I could see I couldn't hear what they were saying, but the expressions on their face, even just the body language, it was so intense. And I felt really moved to see, like, is there a role I can have in what that one mother had asked me about, which is like, let's just talk about this a little bit more. Like, what is actually going on here? Is there a way we could do better by these women and the babies? And the doula project really came from that. It came from a lot of conversations. It came from the women themselves, which always, it seems like, the best ideas really do if we just are quiet and listen. Um, and then I took that idea. I got trained as a doula myself. I went to school to be a clinical social worker. I got trained as a doula myself to learn more about that.
Now, is that
And then
something that's you need an education for? To be a doula, is that like a nursing program, or what is that?
Yeah. So a doula really, in case anyone hasn't heard of it, it really does 3 primary functions: emotional support of pregnant and postpartum people, physical support, teaching them things they can do with their body in pregnancy, labor, postpartum, to increase their well-being and health, and informational support. So like being an educator or a resource. It's not delivering the baby. It's not the business end of birth. It's more the like heart space education piece of it, and physically too. So yeah, it's a training program. There's several training programs you can go to where it's sort of independent study, and then you go to a class together and you learn with another group of people. And then you have to practice and you have to pass a few tests. Looks a little bit different in some different places, but mostly that's how you get the chance to become a doula. So I was going through this training. I was doing some practicing with some young I was learning, not practicing. I was learning with my clients as my best teachers in community a lot around young pregnant women who are suffering from mental illness. It was often their first baby. Like, is this an intervention that could even work in the prison? And I saw very quickly, like, wow, just how profound this simple idea of, like, I think most folks don't know that there are many women in our communities that go and deliver babies entirely on their own. They might just be dropped off at a hospital, they might not have anyone with them. And to just have the support of another kind of educated, unconditional, loving source with you has very good outcomes. They've studied doula care and it demonstrates really good evidence-based outcomes
So
for the mother and infant's health.
what type of evidence-based outcomes have they seen inside of the prison? How has it benefited them?
Yeah. So in our project, what we're really seeing is less postpartum depression, which is what you were naming, right? Is like our whole mind, body is primed to be with our babies when they're born. And when you remove an infant from a mother, it is just one of the most catastrophic losses of a lifetime. And as you know, you can be incarcerated for writing a bad check. That actually doesn't have anything to do with how good of a caregiver or a mother you might be. Maybe you were just desperate and needed to get money to feed your kids, right? So we're taking away babies from mothers who, like, my experience has been like profoundly love those babies, profoundly want those babies. And so how do we help people? What I saw in the very beginning was people who were like becoming, and maybe you saw this too, Shug, but like just splitting off that experience as if it never happened to them. It was so psychologically traumatizing. So when we began the project, the point was to say, you can have a meaningful role in your child's life, even if you never parent them, but in your pregnancy, right? You can be loving your baby, making healthy lifestyle choices, learning about how your baby's growing, talking to your baby, and then having the best possible birth you can have for your infant so it can enter the world like primed to be healthy and have a successful life.
How
And
soon
so
how soon can they work with you inside a prison in their pregnancy?
as soon as they find out they're pregnant,
So early,
very
first
early. Yep.
trimester. Okay.
Very early. Yep. I've even had clients myself who've been in a jail and were referred to our program, and I followed them from jail to prison.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we try to give people support as soon as they possibly can, because many people don't know they're pregnant when they come there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just shocking to think of having, and
Hmm.
people kind of dismiss maybe missed cycles as like intense stress of going through
Yeah.
the criminal justice system.
Hmm.
So then they are pregnancy tested when you get to the prison or a jail, and then they often find out they're pregnant, and it's just shocking. And then they soon learn they're going to have to deliver alone. You know, that
Yeah.
like that's what you were seeing in the beginning. And what it used to be like is they could be shackled in their
Hmm.
pregnancy. They were definitely shackled in the postpartum period. They were definitely being shackled in jails when they were going to medical visits, and just the whole and then like the whole experience of not being able to parent your child.
No,
That's what I
that's the end I see a lot. Because the women, like we baptized almost 700 women inside of Shakopee prison over the years. And, I get ready to baptize them and they're pregnant and I'll pray over the child. Everybody in the gym, it's packed. Everybody's so excited. It's like a Vikings football game. People are cheering and they're so excited for their friends getting baptized. But then we pray over that beautiful child. Then I see this woman come back after delivery and she's ripped apart. She's crying. She can't, just that separation from her baby that she's been pregnant with for such a long time. And, in Africa, the unusual thing is Africa allows mothers to have their up to 3-year-old with them. Now I know that's not logistic here in the United States, but that's what they do in Africa for the purposes of that child, the benefit of the child. But I have seen, and I'm in such support of what you guys are doing, that it just rips apart these women's hearts. And friends, as you're listening, I don't want you to say, well, okay, they're in prison, they've done their time, they deserve this. No way. We're human beings, all of us. And I keep thinking, what does Jesus think about this? And so I think what you guys are doing is groundbreaking. How long have you been doing it
mm,
for, Erica?
thank you for saying all of that,
Mhm.
because in the beginning people would just look at me sideways and they would be like, I'm sorry, what are you trying to do, and we had so much pushback for it. And it took me to being very courageous and just saying like, I think this needs to happen
Hmm.
in the world. The women are saying it needs to happen. So it took us 4 years to get approval for the program, and we've been doing it for 10 years. We just had our 10th anniversary of the first birth, and we went and saw that child with her mother, who's doing very, very well. It's just beautiful. And then 5 years ago, we started a second project in Tutwiler Prison in Alabama. So we've been doing that for 5 years. And then slowly we've been branching out to the jail. So 10
Hmm.
years total. But I hear exactly what you're saying about in other countries. And this is why pre-COVID, our team started to travel to other countries to learn about innovation in incarceration for mothers, because we are way behind in America. And I visited prisons in Mexico City, which are considered to be some of the hardest prisons in the world. And that is, children stay with their mothers there for that same reason and are raised by like a community of women.
Yeah. That's really the mentality. A community of women are raising them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then, but in places like Egypt, in Africa, I know that people's sentences will be deferred because culturally or religiously, people believe that the child must be with the birth mother for
Yeah.
the first 3 years of life. But
Mm.
in the United States, we don't see it like that. But it is changing. I know
Yeah.
it is changing here. And I feel it changing and I see it changing all the time. And we recently were just working on legislation where I was at the Capitol a lot, and I saw lawmakers on both sides of the aisle start to say, like, I remember the word specifically, collateral consequences. We can't be making social policy, whether it's health policy or criminal justice policy, without really sitting down and contemplating the collateral consequences intergenerationally, emotionally, psychologically, neurodevelopmentally for the children of mothers.
Mhm. And I think it takes legislation. After being in the Department of Corrections for 19 years and working with them, they are trying the best they can. But this is a dinosaur at times, and often, it takes a lot to get change to happen. And so, how can our listeners come alongside and support you, Erica?
You know, there's a lot of ways. And I will say that, giving a donation, and like it's the kind of donations that are like $5 a month. So like we as a program know there's a stream of money coming in because we're not a volunteer organization. We believe that women's time is precious. There are so many things we're asked to do in life, right? Parent our children, take care of our homes, help our extended family, help our communities, and work now in 2021, right? And to do this work is heavy on your heart. We're leaving our children to go do it. We want to have that same team of women who can just become experts for a very long time. So we pay all of our staff to do the work.
And what type of
Um,
people do you hire?
we hire social workers. We hire formerly incarcerated women now. We have 3 who work on our team, because they they gave birth in our project, and they were like, I just want to go give back to women
Give
the same
back.
thing that I
I hear that
experienced.
time and time again. They just want to keep giving back because they're so thankful for the help.
It's so beautiful. Humans
Yeah.
can be so beautiful, even in those dark, dark places. And I think maybe that's what keeps pulling you and I back to that work, because
Mhm.
some of the most profound human things you will experience are in the darkest places. And unless you've seen it yourself, it's hard to kind of imagine it. But that pulls me through the hard times when I think, like, oh my goodness, this is so challenging, or there's so many obstacles, or nobody wants this, or people think I'm doing a bad job. I just stay focused on the women and like what I have seen with my own eyes, which
Mm.
is it's powerfully good.
Yeah. And what's the website they can go to donate?
Ostarainitiative.org.
And how do you spell that?
Ostara, the word initiative.org.
I love it.
And I will say a couple, in the state of Alabama, which has, I, it's been really wonderful to work in the South, to work in a different culture where churches are a big part of community everywhere, but in the South, it's like a whole nother level. So in our program, I just want to tell a church story because it really
Yeah.
inspires me. Um, we have permission, and you're going to know how profound this is because you work in prisons. We got permission to serve a meal every week in our pregnancy group.
Oh,
So
wow.
we cook meals in partnership with churches, and we carry it in, and we set up a beautiful table of a healthy meal, because in carceral settings, there's not access to nutritious foods, right? And in partnership with the churches, we're able to do it for very low cost. And get the opportunity to do that sometimes. So I get to travel to the churches, we pick up the food, we carry it in the prison, we eat together, and then we have a lesson about prenatal education, postpartum, parenting, something. And um, there was a woman one day, we were picking up the food, and she was just telling me that a bright spot in her week is when she's cooking the food and how she prays over the food when she's
Oh,
cooking it so that when the women eat it, they can feel her prayers. And that like gives me goosebumps every time I think about that.
yeah.
Beautiful.
As part of our travels, my husband and I have decided we're taking Him for Her ministries around the United States in different cities. Because whenever I go speak, I'll speak with Prison Fellowship Ministries, et cetera, as one of their keynotes. And then that prison will say, we really want a mentorship program to come in here. And,
Exactly.
the resources are limited. And so we've decided we're going to, Him for Her Ministries has a mentorship program. And so we're going to try our best to go into different cities and talk with communities and churches and the wardens, et cetera, and talk about building a mentorship program in those cities. And this project would go hand in hand so beautifully with it because a high percentage, what is the percentage of women who come into prison pregnant, did you say?
Well, pregnant or have given birth in the last year, 1 in 4.
1 in 4. I mean, and the statistics for, women's population is the fastest growing population in prison, even versus men. Even though there's more men incarcerated, ours is, projecting all the faster because of drug use, et cetera. So more and more women are coming in pregnant. And I just think that this is a way to show love. And
Hmm.
it's such a difficult time. And we got to remember, friends, people that are incarcerated are human beings. And I know,
Hmm.
as I had said before, the Department of Corrections is doing the best that they can. But it's
Hmm.
programs like this Minnesota Prison Doula Project under Ostara. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Um,
Good.
it is the body of Christ, is what I believe, and people are coming alongside and they're getting the love thing right. So hats off to you. I know it was difficult for you to head this up, but you know what I love hearing your story, Erica, is that when you said you saw this person teaching this class and you knew that she didn't have any, much experience, and that this God was calling to you didn't use the word God, because I am. God is
Hmm.
calling you to this, and I see how he has mapped this future out for the women, and
Hmm.
encouraging them along the way as they give birth. So thank you very much.
I really appreciate it. And I agree with you. It's kind of the most divine work I think we can do as women for other women. So
Hmm.
thank you for highlighting this work. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Do you have a little story that you can tell us of someone who's recently delivered, and the process you guys went through?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I'm going to tell a story of a woman I worked with who's getting ready to have another baby now on the outside, and I'm going to get to go to her birth
Oh, good.
post incarceration. So often the women we worked with will want that. So like this was such a great experience, and I want you to see me not incarcerated. I want you to see me living my best life.
Hmm.
Um, but this was a story. It was very much in the news. Someone broke into her home in the middle of the night, and she had 4 children, and that person attacked her, and she stabbed that person one time with a little pocket knife, just a little pocket knife. She just grabbed it to defend herself. And because of the injury, it just like it was a freakish thing. That person died. And she was sentenced to 20 years in prison for that. And I met her in the jail, and she was 6 weeks. She didn't even know she was pregnant when she got to jail. And then she was facing 20 years in prison. And I would see her every week. We hear prison and jail. And just so people know, prison is a place where it's kind of set up for people to live a long time there.
Hmm.
Jail is a very restrictive place. And if you have a long trial like that, no one is meant to live like that. You are in your room 23 hours a day. The
You're
food
cuffed when you
you're,
walk in the hallways, and
it's not a good, there's no
mhm.
access to outside. So she was there for not 9 months, all of her pregnancy. I saw her. And then, like you were saying about the Department of Corrections, it's a dinosaur. I try to really cultivate a lot of love for the people that work in that system. because they're going through a lot of trauma too, right? And some of my greatest collaborators have been people in the Department of Corrections, um, and I'm grateful for that.
Mhm.
Um, but she was getting ready to have her baby while she was on trial for murder. She hadn't been convicted yet, and they were taking her to her hearing every day, cuffed, with actually, this was right after the anti-shackling bill, so she wasn't cuffed. Very pregnant in the winter in Minnesota, sitting on trial for murder. And she was terrified of having her baby, and the jails don't see a lot of births. So they didn't really know what to do, and she couldn't even have paper. She didn't even have paper, so she was trying to memorize my phone number, so when she got to the hospital they would call her and she would write it on her skin if she could ever find a pen. She was so terrified of delivering alone. But we were able to work with the warden at that time to have her sent to Shakopee before she was sentenced, because at least Shakopee, if we think about it from like a harm reduction perspective,
Mhm.
can we do less harm? They see a lot of births, right? So
Mhm.
they have the doula program there, and she asked me for that, like, could I just get to Shakopee so I could know where I'm settled when I'm going to give birth versus being here, which is really bad. So she got to Shakopee, and 3 days later she had her baby there,
Mm.
which is not uncommon, which is so shocking to be in a place and then deliver and just not know what's going on and then be separated from your baby. But then later, I remember seeing her in the postpartum period a real lot, and she had a really lovely birth. It was a really beautiful, fast, easy birth for her, and we got to share that. It was very good. Um, but I would see her at her postpartum visits, and she would just say, "This isn't my life. This isn't my life. I've never been in trouble before." Like, and in prisons, people are often like saying that, so you're kind of like desensitized to people saying that. But that client of mine ended up having her case overturned by the Supreme Court and was
Oh,
released from
oh,
prison.
awesome. I mean, what people need to know too is, women inside of prison are sober and thinking straight, perhaps for the first time, versus jail. They come and go, coming in, come out,
Yeah.
and I just want you to know that the women inside of there need your prayers. They need
Mm.
your hope. The Department of Corrections needs your support as a community when they come out. These women need jobs. They need opportunity. Everybody needs a second chance. And I'm just so thankful, Erica, that you came on and talked about Ostara and the Minnesota Prison Doula Project, because we are already short of time. I hate to say it went so
It's okay.
fast. But thank you
Thank you.
so much, Erica, for sharing your heart and sharing what you guys are doing. How can our listeners be praying for you, Erica?
Thank you so much for that question. I think we just passed a piece of legislation where we will be the first state in the country to no longer incarcerate pregnant people.
Awesome.
It's amazing. And I want the whole rest of the country to follow. That's the
Yes.
goal of Ostara, is to end prison birth in America. So to pray that people's minds and hearts can be open to new ideas and
Yeah.
doing things differently, and
Mm.
that our project and others can shepherd these ideas for the next 10 years to just end this practice in our country.
Let's do this. Let's make sure we talk off air and get this, connection going. And as I'm in the different states, et cetera, let's talk to the officials and let's get this all throughout the United States. Ladies, I'm so thankful that you've joined us. Erica Gerrity, I'm so thankful that you're with us as well, and all of the work that you're doing. They need your donations. They need your support. Please look them up at Ostara Initiative online. And again, thank you so much, Erica, for coming on our
Mhm.
show.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
ladies,
Thank you.
if you don't know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, perhaps today is the day. Because if He's prompting your heart to step forward and help with this initiative, would you reach out to us at him4her.org under the info line, and we'll put you in contact, and we're going to have her logo on our website as well. My name is Shug Bury. You know I love you. Over and out.